Are depressive meds really good for our heads? And was Tom Cruise right when he said those pills were a fright? A major review out of the University College London found no convincing evidence that low serotonin levels cause depression, casting doubt on the use of antidepressants to treat it. What do they find more effective in treating unhappiness? Wow, I was like almost dead there for a moment. Which leaves me with just one question. Was Tom Cruise actually right all along? Remember this?
Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do. All it does is mask the problem.
Do you examine the possibility that these things do work for some people? Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric shock.
Too many kids on Ritalin, Matt.
I'm just saying, but aren't there examples where it works?
Matt, you don't even, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is.
I agree with Tom. The cure for depression is clearly hundreds of millions of dollars and a thriving movie career. But after being mocked for that opinion about drugs, could it be maybe this whole time Tom was right? Although the Royal College of Psychiatrists, ooh, fancy, urged people with depression to continue taking their meds, insisting antidepressant drugs do in fact still work, which is more than you can say for Matt Lauer. Boom! Kat, in the green room, you were saying Tom Cruise is almost right on everything, and I should know I lived with him for 5 years. Is that true?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
I know. I know. And it's amazing how you kept that to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or telling you anything again.
So it's not like he's totally right, and it's not like we're only talking about one chemical, but there's something interesting.
I mean, you're talking to a Ritalin kid.
You are a Ritalin kid.
I mean, I'm a Vyvanse adult. So like,
that's a commercial. I once was a Ritalin kid. Yeah. Now I'm a Vyvanse adult.
Well, I mean, I could not function in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
My behavior was so out of control that whenever there was a substitute teacher, they would just preemptively have me do my work in the principal's office.
What would you do? What was your behavior?
Just being myself.
Were you a yeller?
I was loud. I started like a chant of like no more math, and everyone joined in. And then they called my dad like your daughter was inciting a riot, and he made a great point. He was like, she's 5.
Yeah.
But I was on I've been on most antidepressants, but I'm actually not on any right now, and I haven't been for over a year. And I'm just one person, right? But for me, I realize that I feel differently when I'm not on them, in that I feel more like bad and good, which I'm cool with. But yeah, still an amphetamine gal.
Yeah, good for you.
Outstanding.
Good for you. You know,
ADD, ADHD combined type is no joke.
Yeah. You know, Jimmy, whenever I look, Tom Cruise, I think, believes that you can just manage reality, right? Because, and therefore, you can manage reality without chemistry. All you have to do is work your mind, man.
Yeah.
Then he jumps on your couch.
No, but it's true. Tom Cruise doesn't care. Like, to your point, he's on Mission Impossible 7 with a straight face, knowing they've pulled off the first 6.
Yeah.
It's clearly not impossible. You know what I mean? But like, mission fairly difficult, but with any luck, you know what I mean? But he was right, and think of how much he was mocked for the last, 15 years for contradicting the mainstream narrative around drugs.
Right.
You know, and people are like, oh, look at this kook, he's a loony, which is no different than what they do with you now with all of these vaccines and boosters. They didn't have data to support those diagnoses, and they don't have data right now to push a booster on your kids, but they do it. And if you say you don't like it, they're like, oh, this guy's a contrarian nutbag, we shouldn't listen to him. The truth is, we all knew there was no chemical imbalance issue, and if you really want to stop and fight depression, don't root for the Mets anymore. That's 80% of you. You'll be fine.
I have to take issue. We've only learned it's about one chemical.
Yeah.
I mean,
Serotonin?
I happen to believe it. Almost everything's biological, and you know, so there.
Whoa! You are not welcome in the Democratic Party.
Yes, I know.
Get him out of here.
Excuse me, except biological
Thanks
sex.
for coming, TERF. Thanks for coming. Who let J.K. Rowling in here?
But there is something to be said that they didn't do blood testing before they, prescribed these drugs for children. I mean, and Tom Cruise had a point. But then I'm watching Matt Lauer, I'm thinking, what about prescribing antidepressants to all the women he locked in his office and assaulted, So...
Wow.
Liz.
And, he could have used some mood blockers, Matt Lauer.
Yes, he could.
So. But then I'm wondering, when is Tom Cruise going to weigh in on puberty blockers for kids?
Yeah.
Is he gonna
That's actually a good point. Yeah. That's a really good point, because that's far more out. Yeah. I mean, going after adults for making an adult decision with antidepressants. I mean, maybe it's brave, but it's not as brave as that. And if you're messing with kids, because they don't fit into that perfect gender hole or gender square, that's a travesty.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, we see all these drug commercials. There's miles of side effects, right? But no disclosures about the cost.
Yeah.
No. Right? Monetarily or otherwise, right?
Funny.
Liz, you're getting a little too close to our advertisers.
All right.
Warning, Gutfeld show may cause uncontrollable hilarity. Be sure and talk to your doctor about watching a repeat. Chadwick, okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Scientology. Isn't that where a lot of his anti-pharmacology comes from, in a way? Or
yeah, I mean, these kind of fringe religions do get some things right occasionally.
I think that
Islam and
Scientology
women
makes people better, even though it sounds funny.
Yeah. I'm on the same page. I was prescribed Wellbutrin once to quit smoking. They used to do this.
Yes.
And when I went to pick it up, the pharmacist said, "Oh, by the way, I got to tell you, sometimes the side effect is suicidal thoughts."
Yes.
And I said, "What?" And he goes, I got to say that for the lawyer. And I said, "But it's an antidepressant." And he goes, "Well, sometimes depressed people, they want to kill themselves, but they have no energy. And this gives them energy." And I swear
This is true.
Yeah, and I swear,
God.
I took this for 2 weeks, and 2 weeks into it, I had this day and I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was wrong with me.
Thank
and
God
I
you
was
got
like,
off
and then
it.
I remember the pharmacist, I'm like, it's this medication I'm on. Stops, never.
Did he give you something else?
No, I didn't go back.
Right.
I put it in the garbage.
And
I
you
was
know
like,
what?
I'll smoke for
And
another 15 years.
he's a happy smoker to this
I'm a
day.
happy smoker today.
There's a happy ending. All right, we got to move on. No one tackles topics like we do.
There it is.
And call me Tom. Coming up, the dumbest reason to disappoint fans by far, courtesy of Pat Benatar.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.